It's Friday, March 15th. I'm Wayne Moore. This is Evening Update. At the top of the news, world leaders expressed condolences and condemnation Friday following the deadly attacks on mosques in New Zealand, while Muslim leaders said the mass shooting was evidence of a rising tide of violent Islamophobia. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canadians are appalled by the attack and said they remember all too well the sorrow after a Canadian man shot dead 6 Muslim men in a Quebec mosque in 2017. New Zealand police said at least 49 people were killed Friday at 2 mosques in the picturesque South Island city of Christchurch. More than 20 were seriously wounded in what Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern called a terrorist attack. Here in Kelowna, Canada's Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale was in town for an announcement on flood mitigation. He took a moment to speak on the tragedy in New Zealand.
Hatred, Islamophobia, and right-wing extremist violence have no place in any society. Everyone should be able to practice their religion peacefully and safely without fear. New Zealand is one of Canada's Five Eyes allies. That security and intelligence alliance consists of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
We'll have more on the flood announcement in a moment. A Vernon man who recently immigrated to Canada was among the victims of Sunday's deadly Ethiopian Airlines crash. 47-year-old Chunming Jack Wang was headed to Nairobi for his final paperwork to complete the immigration process. Wang owned Big O Tires in Vernon since 2015 and had moved his family from China in hopes of giving his 2 daughters a better education. His 18-year-old daughter Allison visited the crash site and called it horrible. It's like hell. The 5th and final person allegedly involved in a kidnapping in Kelowna last month has been granted bail. On the evening of March 1st, police arrested 5 people at multiple locations across the city in connection with a kidnapping that had occurred earlier that week. Despite objections by the Crown, 32-year-old Shane Haynes was granted bail on Thursday. Well, as mentioned earlier, Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale was in Kelowna Friday. He brought with him a large check for Mill Creek flood mitigation. The city will get $22 million, which will be used to protect homes and businesses across the Mill Creek floodway.
The impact these natural disasters have on local government and our residents is stressful and costly. So it is with a great appreciation that we welcome Minister Goodale and his announcement of $22 million to help protect our city from future floods.
Lawyers representing a former Penticton couple are in Vancouver Supreme Court. They're arguing for access to a trust set up after a settlement the husband received following a brain injury he received at the hands of the RCMP in northern BC. Robert Wright suffered a severe brain injury in 2012 after having his head smashed into a bench of a terrace jail cell while he was handcuffed by Constable Brian Heidman. Wright had been detained on suspicion of drunk driving. RCMP and Wright reached a multi-million-dollar settlement with his new wife, Heather Prisk, assigned as trustee and caregiver. Vernon police confirm all animals associated to the house fire on Irish Creek Road are okay and were not harmed in the blaze. Constable Kelly Brett says SPCA and Major Crime Unit investigators do remain on the scene. The home owned by Carla Christman was destroyed by a fire that began just after midnight Thursday. Christman is under investigation by the SPCA for the condition of some of the animals in her care. Cause of the fire is still under investigation. Moduline Penticton has laid off about 50% of its staff after a slow winter building season. Company GM Lloyd DeHart told Castanet News the modular home company gave about 120 people 2 weeks' notice of termination on Thursday. Students from across the Okanagan and around the world walked out of classrooms on Friday afternoon demanding a global call to action on the environment and climate change. In Vernon, students from W.L. Seton Secondary took to the steps of the courthouse to make their plea.
We're here to call on governments and corporations to be held accountable for their carbon emissions and for their actions. It's fact that 71% of carbon emissions per year are produced by just 100 industrial polluters. So this isn't something that requires individual action like recycling or carpooling. This is something that requires mass action on a mass scale.
In Kelowna, hundreds of students gathered at Carey Park. They marched to the office of MP Stephen Fuhr, then to Stewart Park across from City Hall. Some changes afoot at Kelowna's Orchard Park Mall. Demolition plans have been submitted to City Hall asking for a demolition permit for a portion of the former Sears retail store. Plans call for demolition of half the former store to add more parking, with the other half becoming a future location for Mark's Work Warehouse. Other changes to the mall are apparently in the works. However, plans have not yet been made public. Okanagan weather, partly cloudy tonight, lows to -3. Sunny and warm for the weekend, highs 10 on Saturday and as high as 13 for Sunday. Coming up tonight and tomorrow, sentencing submissions for a convicted West Kelowna rapist and one of the world's fittest men is giving back. For details on these and the rest of the day's news, keep it here at castanet.net. Have yourself a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. For Castanet News, I'm Wayne Moore.